Andrew Apanov. Today we are going to talk about a few big important questions in a career of an independent artist related to marketing and growth. We are going to cover marketing funnels. There will be quite some theory, but in an applicable way with some examples and real-life exercises for you and assignments. So my recommendation is to take a pen and paper and take some notes. We don't have too much time. Usually I spend hours on these kind of workshops talking about these topics, so we will need to be very tactical about what I talk about and what you can actually implement. A few notes about myself, because I don't expect any of you to have any idea of who you are talking to you right now. So I'm a founder and CEO of a marketing agency called Music. We've been in the market for around 10 years and serve primarily independent musicians from around the world, mainly United States. My team is location independent. Myself, I'm Russian, living in Poland, but yeah, we've got people in different parts of the world. It's a small team and we work with a limited amount of artists, but have a lot of fun doing that. Work with music startups as well, but everything related to music exclusively. I myself have been doing different things related to the music industry over the years. I was organizing live events for a short period of time and DJing. I worked at Ultimate Guitar for 7 years. Any of you playing guitar, bass, have used Ultimate Guitar or any of its sub-websites, affiliated websites for guitar tablet, I'm pretty confident. It was great for getting experience and connections in the industry, but in 2009 I opened a blog called Music, which later became the agency, and over the years I've been working with bands, kind of managing, mainly it's been marketing management and doing a lot of educational work as well. We had an educational platform for musicians called WeSpin for some years. I've been a host of a podcast called Music Growth Talks. I don't release new episodes right now, but I highly recommend you checking it out. There was like 150 episodes, lots of interesting interviews that may be applicable to you. And I've been speaking at conferences like Medium Barrel Music Week, Bailam, Reeperbahn, Dance Fair, many others. And we just do a lot of hustle and work in the music world. But once again, for the most part, we work with emerging, growing artists, help them acquire new fans, and oftentimes, if it's someone with an established audience, we help them engage and monetize their audience as well. So there is a lot of different things that go into marketing an artist, and before we talk about something practical and specific, I want to cover the concept of a marketing funnel. This is really important for your mindset, just for visualizing, especially if you are a visual type. It's really easy to just see it, how exactly your whole marketing, it's not even a marketing plan, it's like an outline of how exactly you grow online, how it's structured and what exactly you can be doing with your efforts, where you may be spending your budget, your marketing budget, and most importantly, just understanding what the heck you are doing online. Because mainly it's all about online things. We don't do PR, for example, that's the work of a publicist, and we don't do radio plugin. We focus on all things related to online and digital marketing. That's an important thing I wanted to mention to you. This is great thing for you because there is a lot that you can cover yourself, and this is very liberating. There are there are of course, but there are few middlemen and gatekeepers. Actually, if you just go direct to fan, in particular, something that we'll cover in a bit. So a marketing funnel is just a marketing term. There is a number of ways to describe it. There are many ways to talk about it. Like the details are different marketers present it differently. It's different in different industries as well. Don't worry about that, because essentially everyone is talking about the same thing. And there are sometimes like charts and pies and different ways to present it visually. I really like the idea of a funnel because you can see step by step the journey of your fan, essentially. And I like to describe it, and I'll explain to you how it's applicable to you, of course. So I like to describe it as reaching people, listeners, at the top of that funnel, acquiring fans as the second stage, activating them, retaining or engaging them, and monetizing. And I've been hugely inspired over the years by the growth hacking and the kind of marketing in the tech world, so I've been grabbing a lot of ideas from there. There are the pirate metrics, which are pretty much, yeah, this is the same kind of funnel, but it's applicable to products, traditional products like applications, for example, mobile apps, more than music. So think about it. If you have an app, if you are selling something, if you are selling a product in an e-commerce world, for example, you want to build your funnel around the awareness, capturing interested people somehow, making sure that your product, your idea resonates with them so they make a decision to buy. When you deal with music, you actually reach people with your end product, what originally has been an end product in the recording industry, which is just completely messed up right now, and has been pretty much during my whole career, or for like 17 years doing different things in music. And we essentially reach people right away with your music product. It's like the music itself is free with YouTube, Spotify, and so on. I don't need to explain you that. And then we still need to convert those people into your fans, into people who read it and are willing to support you financially and so on. So this is pretty interesting. That's why we start with this idea of reaching info. It's pretty different because we kind of reaching people with your music right away. When I'm trying to lock it, so I'm pretty much against, almost in all cases, I speak artists out of windowing releases, only releasing them on particular platforms and not making them available everywhere, because sometimes there are exceptions, but yeah, most of the times you just complicate things for yourself. People will be consuming music where they are used to doing that. You just don't try to change that. No one cares about MP3s pretty much, so people will still be streaming music from the app that is already installed on their phone, so you need to accept that. And again, there are of course caveats and so on. So this is, so the concept is applicable to pretty much like any kind of artist at any at any level, but the focus of yours will be different depending on where you are at the beginning. You are focusing on acquiring and just reaching people because you don't have an audience yet, and then if you've got some kind of an audience, you want to engage and activate them so they become more actively involved in what you do and follow and interact with you. And if you've got a proper fan base, then you want to make it easier and more exciting for your fans to support you financially. And we are going to talk about each of these stages in a bit, and just give you, I'm going to give you a couple examples so you can see how it can be applicable to you. Let's talk about each of these stages of the funnel as I described it, and then see what to do with it in real life. The first stage is reaching people, and as with any other stage here, you can think about the different channels, how exactly you can achieve that goal, that objective. And this is an obvious one, seemingly, how to reach new listeners. And there is a few interesting things that happen with this right now, and you need to keep in mind that at an early stage of an artist's career, you pretty much develop your audience on different channels separately. It's like it happens a bit of in an isolation. That's because the platforms do everything they can to lock their audiences where they are. So Meta does it with Facebook and Instagram. YouTube does it, Spotify and DSPs do it, and Spotify is a great, terrible example of a platform which isn't really good for building a direct-to-fan relationship with an artist, because you can get this reach especially if you have a good label or connections, and you get placements in editorial Spotify playlists, you get some love from the algorithms, and you just get some traction. But you probably have seen it, and maybe you've experienced it yourself, that you can have dozens and hundreds of thousands of streams, or just whatever the amount is, but you may have a limited amount of followers, and maybe almost like non-existent audience on Instagram and whatever social media platform you are on, and you hopefully are on a few. And that's how things are. It really only happens at a much later stage of an act's career, where these kind of just, channels unite. So you need to address that and understand how to deal with that, because just reaching people for the sake of it is great, because this is the art, this is the music. It may change people's life when someone hears the lyrics of your songs and just how that music resonates with them at the time when they heard the song. So this is important, but you need to consider that. The most common examples here, so I want to keep it specific and mention the channels that are applicable to most of the artists these days. Anyone who is doing it kind of semi-traditional way, in indie way as well. So I mentioned Spotify. Let's not talk about it too much. There is YouTube, which we love because it allows to get that reach through paid ads very effectively. There is Instagram, Facebook, there is TikTok, which has a viral element. If you're really good with content on TikTok, this is the best free way to reach people because of how algorithms work. You don't really need to spend money to reach the people if it has the viral potential and the initial viewers engage with your content, watch it in full, and so on. So this is something kind of to consider, because TikTok, of course, is not the way to reach someone with a full song. But spreading the music itself is pretty important, and you can do it in different ways. And this is where we use advertising, targeted advertising a lot. So this is the beginning of the funnel, and the easiest way to achieve that, the most practical way to achieve that, is through targeted ads. The most common examples being Facebook, Instagram ads, and YouTube ads, something that I'll mention to you in a bit. So the second stage is acquisition, and by that we think about how to capture the audience somehow in a way that you can reach them in the future. And it can be a follower, a subscriber, an email subscriber. If you are focusing on building your community, which I highly recommend these days in particular, it's absolutely crucial to build a community around what you do or the topics that you cover, something like a Discord server, or like there is a number of ways to do that. So you can think about how exactly, like, what you want people to do if they like your music. And once again, there are channels like Spotify where your options are pretty limited. They may follow you if they decide to, but it's pretty difficult for anyone to leave the platform, and the platform itself doesn't, well, it's just the nature of how music is consumed on playlists. Most of the people who, even if they like your music, if it's in the playlist, they may not even look up your name. It's fine. It's just something that you need to address. So acquisition is important because you really need to understand where you want to capture your fans, your listeners, because otherwise it may be quite messy. And this, of course, is related to targeted advertising as well as the simplest way to do that. And I want to mention one caveat, which is more like general comment, but this is also important for setting the right mindset around what kind of audiences you operate with. You can deal with abstract audiences of listeners, like it can be a segment of an audience with a particular targeting with ads. It can be your followers, on a social media network, especially something like Spotify, where you don't know who these people are, but they subscribe to you. So, and you can reach them by releasing a new song on Spotify. Maybe it will appear in the release radar for these people, or in the feeds of their like Instagram apps, YouTube, and so on. I'm just using these platforms as examples. Once again, there are more options, but these are the most common ones. So this is interesting because due to privacy concerns and different just how things have been with that, you cannot deal with individual persons here, individual people. You deal with these abstract audience, but you know that there are people who are interested in you, but you deal with them as a whole. So this is a bit different from establishing one-on-one relationship, a proper direct-to-fan relationship, when someone reaches out to you in direct on Instagram and you chat to them and you connect. A Discord channel, which I mentioned, is a great way to establish this direct-to-fan relationship, because you will have your supporters in a group channel in a group chat with you. So just think about that, because you have to deal with both areas. It's very important to deal with these kind of abstract listeners or potential listeners who may be at different stages of relationship with you that is being established, and you want as much as possible to establish this direct-to-fan relationship as well. And yeah, so just something to keep in mind. Let's quickly switch to the other stage. After acquisition goes activation, and you can basically, it's essentially not just getting a mere follower, but getting a follower who will see your content in the future and who will engage with it, because too often than not you will get some random follower subscriber somewhere who may not be interested in your content, even if it shows up in their feeds or in their email inboxes if you into email marketing, which still works, by the way, but it's outside of the scope of this video, of course. Then there may be cases where they will never ever see your content because of the algorithms as well. So this is kind of important part, and content strategy plays a crucial role here. We do lots around content planning and ensuring that an artist has a healthy content strategy and a lot of interesting and engaging content. This is important for acquisition as well, because if you think about an Instagram profile, if someone checks you out through an ad or because they heard you live and they want to check you out, and they will consider to follow you or not, and the quality of your content is very important. If it's interesting to them, there may and probably are already people who really like your music, but they have no interest in following you on social media just because they haven't considered it yet, or they didn't find it engaging and interesting enough. So content strategy is absolutely crucial, and it is crucial for activation as well. If your content is good, if it plays well by the rules of the platforms, then the organic reach of this post should be pretty high, and people who follow you may see this post, and you can use retargeting ads on Facebook and Instagram and other platforms to reach people who engaged with you in the past. But content is absolutely essential. And you want to continue building the relationship, engaging your audience, communicating with them, making it interesting. It takes time, and eventually there will be a way where your supporters, your followers will want to support you financially. It's pretty crazy if you think about it, especially in the world of indie musicians, that how many fans there are. You may be just frustrated by the lack of thousands of fans or enough fans streaming your music on Spotify to support you financially. Or you're comparing yourself to other artists in your genre, in your country, for example, and you're just bummed by the fact that you don't have that. But there may be 10 people who really like what you do, and the reality may be, just think about that carefully, it may turn out that they don't have a way to support you financially. It happens so often these days. People support the artists they like because they want to do that. It's actually egocentric a little bit, because we all want attention. So I don't want to dive into it too much right now, but in a way, it's a way to get this recognition. So I define a superfan as someone who has decided to give you any amount of money, $1. It's not about the actual like sum at all. It's just the fact they want to support you. It's not because they really need that cassette tape from Bandcamp that you're offering. Maybe they don't have a cassette player. Well, I do, and I order lots of tapes, but of course there are people who do, but it's more about just showing that appreciation and wanting, even subconsciously, to be noticed by an artist. This is a really interesting whole like thing that is worth untapping and thinking about. So yeah, you really want to make sure that you are offering something that, I mean, on different levels that other supporters of yours, just people, your fans or listeners, can use to support you. And we'll think about different monetization channels or revenue streams here. Let me talk about that briefly. I usually put it into 3 buckets. One is a product, another is an experience, and the third is a service. And usually these are intertwined and they're connected. And I mean, you can basically do any kind of combination, but all artists, and I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of artists. I haven't seen a single artist for whom it's not exclusively hobby, where they try to make money with music. They don't have one income stream, and especially a label major artists, for example, they all have multiple income streams. So when you think about the product, it's a record, it's a digital record which you sell, which is available for streaming. It can be available in a physical form, it can be available for direct purchase from the fans. Bandcamp is a great example here, but you can be selling from your website, from Instagram and whatever. And you can have different kind of bundles, and there is just plenty of different options, and you can think about subscription models here as well. This is a topic that I've been talking about a lot over the years, and it's still so difficult to actually get the subscription model work for artists, unfortunately, but it's possible. There is a Patreon. We've worked with an artist recently who has a series where it's like musicals with a whole fictional world created around it, and Patreon being the main platform where fans come together and support that artist. Patreon and others work really well for content creators, YouTubers and podcasters, a bit more than musicians from my experience, but it's still possible to do something there. Crowdfunding platforms is a great example. You may have a new release every year, and you just have an audience. We've got an artist who just has around like 100 supporters on Kickstarter, and he knows that every time he creates a new campaign, he will get support from these people. They are being activated with every campaign. So there are many different ways to offer something. There are new, fortunately, Web 3.0 developments going on right now. It may be too early for you to mint an NFT with your music, but you should keep a close eye on that area. When you think about experiences, it can be a live performance. I don't talk about live performance too much because most of our artists recording musicians and bands, and of course we have worked with many touring acts, and you probably want to perform more when the situation allows, whatever the current life situation is in your country. But it's important to consider it as a part of everything you do. It cannot be an exclusive just thing that everything is just about live touring. You could see how what kind of bad plan it is with the recent events. So it may be a live experience, a live show, sorry, but it can be a stream on Twitch, it can be YouTube live stream, and there are many things that you can do with subscription platforms like Patreon, which can be considered experiences, and different kind of like charts, and there are just many interesting ways to monetize experiences. And something else that is, well, sometimes related as well is services. And here you can offer an actual service. You can offer a lesson to your patrons on Patreon. Just continue to use it in the example at a particular tier, and you can offer your music like commission work. You can perform at events, just commercial private parties and so on. I didn't mention B2B sales as well. This would go under the products bucket, where you offer your music for sync licensing or stock libraries and so on. There are many different ways to monetize your work. The problem may be if you don't have a clear idea on what exactly you have and what you can offer, and there is no way to create a funnel if you don't know where it ends, like for what you optimize this whole funnel. If you only understand that you want to reach the people, you only think about the top of the funnel, but you have no clear strategy about what else will happen later on in that funnel. And why I like that visual funnel model is because it's easy to backtrack the issues. Sometimes we will run an ad for an artist and we have a really good cost per click or engagement, but then there is no conversion into, well, on the acquisition stage there is nothing, so people don't find content on the profile interesting enough to follow that artist. And there may be different reasons, and it happens with every stage. It often comes to the content, by the way. I like to describe what moves a fan in the journey in the funnel as well. So if you think about your funnel as an engine, so what's the lubricant? What's the oil that moves things? And there is a lot of misconceptions about that as well. It's not the ads. It's not the money. It's really essentially it's a story. It's a narrative that you are telling about yourself. And I know that in other sessions here as a part of this program, you will have some conversations about branding and so on. So pay close attention to that, because it's absolutely crucial. It always comes down to your brand and how different parts of what you do connect to one to another. So okay, so basically, if you think about your funnel and draft it somewhere, and it can be mental note kind of thing, but I recommend you to actually write it down and have a store it as a document. It can be on paper as well. Then you can think about optimizing the different stages and what you should be focusing on right now. I want to give you a simple example of a funnel and something that you could basically implement yourself, right? And now I'm going to give you an example of one of the most common funnels related to advertising. A bit of budget is required here, but I have to mention to you right away that it's pretty much impossible to do almost anything with no budget at all for marketing, not just for content creation. If you have a bit of a budget, please don't just spend it all on content like a music video. You really need to account for online promotion, even if you're doing it yourself. The good news is that there is a lot of good stuff that you can do for cheap, and we've been proving that over the years, and we've seen how artists do it effectively themselves, and there are just too many different ways to approach that to cover in one video. But I will mention to you something that we do pretty much for all of the artists we work with. And again, the good news is that if you spend a bit of time, and it's not exactly exciting for most people, but if you spend a bit of time to learn the Facebook Ads Manager, Google Ads Manager for YouTube promotion, you can do some really good stuff, because the 80% of the setup is pretty straightforward. It's just that the 20% that will give you the 80% of the output, and then the rest of the science behind it is really in optimizing and monitoring the ads. We have dedicated people for that. It's difficult and time consuming, but to achieve some decent results yourself, I mean, it's possible even if you won't have the best the best cost per engagement, for example, or purchase. I mean, it's difficult if you're actually trying to drive sales through ads. It may require a bit of a more difficult setup, but it's doable, especially if the budget isn't too big. So be very careful with huge budgets. Then you really want to have someone to optimize the budget for you, the spend for you with these platforms to make it effective. So something that we do pretty much for everyone is a simple funnel, usually consisting of 2 or 3 stages, and it looks the following way. And I'm using an example of a release here because music releases, from our experience, is still what drives the whole campaign. And it's great if you have a consistent release strategy with a lot of singles coming out regularly, at least for some period of time in a year. If you're preparing an album release at the end of the year, you want to have some singles out for half a year before that. Nothing too exciting here. It's pretty much how things have been looking for many years, so we still kind of recommend that. But these days, more than ever, it's important to have a very consistent release strategy. So keep that in mind, please. And when you release a new record, you may want to do the following. On the release date, and there is quite a few things that you want to be doing prior to release, but if you are developing artists, emerging artists, whatever, like early stage kind of artist, you have a limited audience, but your main focus is on reaching and acquiring more people, the first 2 stages of the funnel I described to you, then you want to focus on the post-release promotion. A really good way to do that is to use video. Video content does really well on all platforms right now, so that's the way to go. Whenever you can, if you don't have a music video, even a simple visualizer lyric video will do just great. So there are ways to do it affordably. It doesn't have to be fancy, and on the contrary, if you know that you cannot do a professional looking music video, better do something like a visualizer. Sometimes visualizers, simple like waveforms, outperform lyric videos and even music videos. So it's crazy. You really like rethink what you do around content, because I see too many bands, especially in Europe, just being obsessed with music videos. I agree with the importance of music video, but yeah, be careful there. And if you do something, make it really great, because the expectations are really high because of the major label budgets on music videos. So you don't want to put out something cheap and crappy there. But video content is important, and we will often release it on a bit after the release of a single on DSPs, like Spotify, Apple Music, and so on, or maybe the same day. Also, release strategy is exciting topic, not for this conversation that we're having today. So we usually release a video natively on all platforms, not linking to YouTube from Facebook. Release it everywhere directly. Facebook, Instagram. Now it's much easier to release videos on Instagram. It's not just IGTV, it will show up on the feed. Make sure that you prepare the thumbnails and like cover images. It's really just funky. Like, practice in advance if you don't have much experience with that, because social media is a tricky place right now in terms of many different channels and so on. YouTube, and you start a promotion of that content. And nothing crazy here, right? But think about it in a particular way. Don't think about it just like as a way to reach people and just get the views. These views don't mean anything. YouTube views may be important for booking agents and promoters. Granted, that's one of the reasons you want to do your YouTube promotion, to get some views up if you have limited organic or PR fueled like amount of views. But yeah, so for the most part, you just don't want to do it just for the views. But when you think about how exactly you may use these views, then it may be different. So if you think about this first stage of this mini funnel as an awareness campaign, you want to reach people with your content who are interested in your kind of music, especially if you are in a particular niche, if you have something non-musical going on, a social cause, you're supporting the particular type of look, the particular type of personality, super confident, that may attract people who want to be confident, weird, in a particular way you are you're into pop culture areas, topics that may be interested to audiences that you wouldn't even think listen to this kind of music that you do. So we'll really like so-called niche marketing and trying people who are interested in what you do, not just targeting fans of similar artists, even for that's usually really effective. And there is more to it, of course, which countries you target, and it will depend on the language you're singing as well, because if it's just for your country, you really want to focus on your country if you're singing in your native language, which is not English, as long as it's not English language, of course. Sorry for my assumption here. So we think about this stage as just the beginning, and this is important to repeat that stage regularly with new releases. But what happens in the background is not just that you are getting these views, you are building a pool, a retargeting pool in Facebook and on YouTube. And then when I talk about Facebook, it applies to Instagram as well, because it's like Facebook and Instagram ads happen from Facebook Ads Manager from one place. You can create a marketing audience. You can reach people who have engaged with your content with another ad in the future. And on Facebook, you can do something like only pick the people. You will not see their names. That's where you deal with this abstract audience, impersonalized. You may only reach people who watched your video, release video, for 1 minute. So not just those who just randomly saw it and didn't even unmute the video, and you know, it's not real view. I mean, it will be counted as a view, but it's not what you're interested in. But you can just pick the people who watched most of your video and then show them another ad in the future. It can be a pre-save campaign for your new single. It can be a show promotion for like a campaign for RSVPs. You will be only targeting people who engaged with your content in the past in the city where you will be performing. And there you can do another funnel where you drive these RSVPs to a Facebook event, but 5 days before the event, you run a retargeting campaign for everyone who RSVP'd as interested in that event, and send them to the Eventbrite or the tickets purchase page, basically. And in the ad copy, you will say something like, hey, we only have like 100 or 50 seats left here, so hurry up. You can always do these several stage funnels with pretty much everything. It's pretty exciting, and you can do more than 2 stages, of course, but 2 is the simplest way to think about that. So if you reach like thousands of people with your video, don't try to lock it on any particular platform, just show it as is to everyone. So yes, you will not get YouTube views when you promote it on Facebook, but you will not get it in any way. So it's really difficult to get views promoting a video on Facebook if you drive traffic to YouTube. Facebook doesn't like that. No platform likes people leaving their platforms. Remember that as well. And you can build that audience over time. There are ways to set this up, and you can only remarket to people who have engaged with your content in the past 360 days, half a year, just the past month. And the more often you release, the more often you do these kind of campaigns, which can be really limited, the more you can get out of these retargeting campaigns. And oftentimes the budgets are pretty modest for retargeting, because you don't want to run it for too long, not to show your other ad too frequently to the same people. So you may have an ongoing awareness campaign, or just like a 2, 3, 4 week campaign around the release, and then 1 week retargeting campaign, and then repeat the cycle. And you can make it more complicated, but this is where I recommend starting with. And the second objective of that second the ads objective will depend on the rest of your funnel, what exactly you want people to do, and think carefully about that. It can be just like, I want streams, I want people to buy tickets to my shows, I want people to buy my t-shirts on Bandcamp. You want to be more specific and really think it through, and ideally you will add some additional layers here. I mentioned Discord, I mentioned Patreon. There are many interesting platforms which you can use to, well, email marketing as well. So how exactly to capture them on a platform that you have more control over compared to Instagram, Facebook, and so on. We've been using platforms in the US, primarily it works better there. Platforms like Superphone, where an artist gets a virtual phone number and any fan can message them, and you can deal with messages just as in a messenger app. Essentially, it's not actually your phone, a real phone number, but you can interact with people via text messages, SMS, and the open rate is like almost 100%, and it feels personalized. So there are many interesting ways to do that, but yeah, think about the funnel. So that's the main outcome, the main idea. I would like to leave you with a couple exercises that you should be able to find separately as a file or as a link, and just think carefully about about all stages of your funnel. What channels you use for each, what are the objectives at the bottom of the funnel. Think carefully about that, and remember that it will be changing all the time, and then see where you have the most issues, where people are, or fans, listeners are stuck at what stage of your, even if you haven't been designing it as a funnel, almost certainly there is already some kind of funnel that you have. So think about how to understand where the issues are and where to focus on. I hope it was helpful, and I'm looking forward to hearing from some of you and reconnecting. Have a great rest of your sessions, and I appreciate your attention. Thank you.